Okay, so as we know, I made a video. It came out on Monday. The initial title is something like I was wrong about AI. Here's the first thing that I just want to point out. When I put a video out, and most people on YouTube do this, YouTube gives us an option internally to try out 3 thumbnails and 3 titles. I tried out 3 different options. One was a picture of me and Dr. Fatima, and it was something like, should we think about AI differently? There was another one that was a picture of me looking very stoic, and it said something like, how not to talk about AI. And the title was something like, should we have a different conversation on AI? And then one option, which I threw out at the last minute, was the one that is there where it's me and it says, I'm wrong, or I was wrong. And the initial titles, I changed my mind about AI. I'm going to tell you why that ended up being the thing, because it performed 20% better than anything else. The most people were clicking that, and early on, the video is performing really well. So based on data, I know that's what I went with. And very quickly, it turned kind of bad. Yeah, A/B testing. So the current title, as you can see right here, is we need to change the AI conversation. And that's something I, for the most part, kind of stand by. Let me make this a little bit smaller. We need to change the AI conversation. I don't like how that. Well, we'll look at this more in a second. Okay, so I think it's pretty clear that even though I have a PhD in philosophy, I can still sometimes struggle with the rigidity of tech and the hard sciences. Another thing that I also struggle with is money. And while I've gotten a little better with money stuff over the years, I still often struggle with keeping track of how I'm spending money and how I could be saving money. For example, I recently learned that I've been paying for a few streaming services that I haven't used in quite some time. So I'm basically just donating money to billion-dollar corporations out of the goodness of my heart. It's bad. It's really bad. But it's getting better because recently I was able to find these subscriptions that I wasn't using and cancel them with the help of this video sponsor, Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that allows you to manage subscriptions, lower your bills, make a custom budget, and grow your savings all in one place. It basically helps you do all of the things that I am bad at doing. And like I said earlier, I had honestly lost track of all of the random subscriptions that I had to different services, but the Rocket Money app showed me all of them laid out in one place. It made me realize that I was paying for some stuff that I rarely, if ever, used, and they made it really easy for me to cancel them. I've also really loved using the budget feature in the Rocket Money app. I don't know if anyone else does this, but for a lot of my life, I've sometimes been afraid to even look at my bank statement because I just don't want to have to come face to face with the decisions that I'm making. But seeing it all laid out visually in the Rocket Money app is actually incredibly helpful. It's made it a lot easier for me to see really clearly what changes I need to make to spend less and save more. So if you are also a grown adult person who still struggles to wrap their head around financial reality or gets really anxious just going to your bank account, use my link to start a free trial of Rocket Money and just emotionally prepare to be shocked that you're still paying for that one thing and then to feel the relief of having that $27.99 a month back in your pocket and not going to some company as a weird sort of donation. So to save more and spend less, join the over 5 million members using Rocket Money today. All you got to do is scan the QR code or click the link in the description to get started for free. You can also unlock even more features with Premium, which is what I've been using. Okay, let's get back to the video so I can keep talking about why tracking spending isn't the only thing that I struggle with. So let me back up and tell you a little bit about, I'm just going to note and say, yes, Isla Anderson. I actually talked about it on stream at one point. I did. So let me give you the genesis of this video. I'll give you the genesis of how I made this one. So I've talked about this so much, an event a couple months ago in San Francisco with 2 YouTubers that I really respect, YouTubers, video creators, thinkers, performers, CJ the X and Dr. Fatima. Everyone was talking about tech-related things, partially because we're all internet people. We were in San Francisco, the belly of the beast, for all this sort of stuff. And for anyone who was there, my presentation went pretty hard on how effed up technology is and how it's dehumanizing us. That is an important thing for me, a thing that you have heard me talk about, a thing that I think about a lot. The issue of technologic dehumanization. And one of the bad guys in my presentation was AI and AI data centers. I referenced Eddington in that one, just like I referenced Eddington in a recent video that I made, that used AI on the internet to talk about our growing political psychosis. But I went first that evening in the presentations, and Dr. Fatima went after me. And in Dr. Fatima's presentation, and this is the thing, I don't want to like speak too much on someone else's work because it's not my work, it's their work. But Dr. Fatima, in her presentation, and it was an awesome presentation on technocracy, the history of technocratic thinking 100 years ago and now, the parallels between the two. And then she got really vulnerable, something I really respect because it's hard to be vulnerable. She got really vulnerable and talked about struggling with like AI addiction in her own life. And I was kind of like, oh shit, because I'm not out here thinking that this really critical, smart leftist scientist is going to be tempted by AI or whatever. You know, she's so much smarter than me about the sciences. How could she do this? And that's not critical. Again, I think she's an incredibly smart person, smarter than me, a person I feel like truly lucky to consider as a friend. But in that presentation, I felt like an asshole for a bit. And I'll tell you why I felt like an asshole. Because she was reflecting on how at a time where she got caught up using ChatGPT more than she needed to and in areas that weren't positive in her life, it was so hard to reach out to friends about because of shame. Now, the next comment is not about Dr. Fatima, just to be clear. I am someone who is related to people and has a lot of addiction in my family. So I've seen what it's like when shame takes over and when someone feels caught in a trap of like their own shame. It's really hard to reach out about something if you feel like the only reception you're going to get is you fucking idiot, you know? And for example, if one of my friends a month or two ago came to me and was like, "Hey, Michael, can I talk to you about something?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." And they were like, "I think I'm struggling with ChatGPT addiction." I would have like made fun of them probably. I probably would have done that, you know? I probably would have done that. And hearing Fatima give that presentation, she reflected on how the way out of that for her, because to be clear, the point she was making is that it's not good to do that. It is bad to give your life over to AI and algorithms, that this is bad. This is bad stuff. The thing that got her out of it was friends treating her like a human. She even showed a text on screen of the presentation of one of her friends kind of joking about why she was better than AI. And then I got to meet some of those actual friends who are fucking amazing people. And, you know, Fatima even reflected on kind of getting pulled back into various forms of human social connection after that period. And it's something that all of the talks that happened that night as part of the Kill the Internet Summit were about. Like, how do we fight against the internet stuff and the AI stuff to be more human? You know, my presentation at that event was called How to Be a Normal Guy, asterisk, guy used in a gender inclusive way. I just got to pull this comment up because it's so good. For me, I ended up reflecting after that talk on ways in which my thinking on AI was lacking the type of empathy and nuance that I have advocated for in a lot of other areas. In particular, I realized that my thinking on AI in general was it is all bad. If you use it, you're bad. If you work for the company, you're bad. It's just all bad stuff. That's kind of where I was thinking. And the same weekend that I heard Fatima's presentation, I had beers with a friend who, I'll say his first name, you might watch this, Brian, who is a better person than most of us. I'll tell you why, because he's a public educator and he's committed his life to making probably way less money than he could to teach in a major city of the United States in a school system that I'm sure is struggling for resources, just like many are. And not only is Brian a person who does something incredible with his life, he's also one of the most hardcore, like Marxist communist guys I know. The dude is about that life. He's teaching his classes. He's studying, Marxist theory on his own time. He has his family. Just someone I really, really admire and look up to. And in talking to Brian, he was reflecting on how he has used, incorporated, and integrated certain elements of AI in his teaching as a public teacher. And my gut reaction, of course, is, well, that's bad. But my gut reaction is that's bad in a really just like visceral way, a way in which my brain has been trained by various algorithmic response mechanisms or whatever, to immediately judge, immediately critique, immediately just be like, no. But then I asked him questions and I tried to remain curious, and I learned a lot from him, and it changed my mind on some stuff. It did not change my mind on like all of the main structural critiques of this technology. It did not radically shift my feeling on the ethics of this thing, but it made me realize that there's not a lot that is productive in a certain type of like all good, all bad thinking. Now, I came back, from that talk and that experience in San Francisco. And this is the same trip. I talk about it in the How to Do Nothing video, where the day after I spent an entire afternoon not on my phone, not with headphones. Again, this isn't the most radical thing ever, but I found it to be a really restorative, interesting experience. And I kept thinking about this, and I wasn't thinking about it in the way that I often think about it in a video, which is like, ooh, here's an idea I know a lot about. I think there's a way I could frame it such that it could help people think about something that matters to them. That's kind of like how stuff normally goes, right? But I was going to put this comment on screen too. But in this instance, I didn't feel like I knew anything new. I felt like I had been challenged in my thinking. I then felt like, wow, I bet a lot of people in my audience and people who watch my work are probably similar to me and might have that same kind of feeling about some of this stuff. So I figured, why not see if Fatima will have a conversation with me about it? So she did. If you're on the Patreon, you've seen the full conversation, and if you haven't seen it and you're on Patreon, it's like a 40 minute interview with Fatima on all of this. You should go check it out. And if you want to join the Patreon, because some people left because of this, I'm pretty sure, you can use code CancelBurns and get 50% off until 4/20. But so I talked to Fatima, and then I figured, rather than make a video where I say that I know about a thing or I know what I think about a thing, I try to perform the type of curiosity and conversational thinking that I value and I think is important. So I'm going to tell you what I was aiming to get at in the video, and then we'll look at some comments for it, and I can kind of talk about that. And one thing as well, my homies Lux and Dave, who work on videos with me, as we were making this one, Hellraiser Fleshlight, thank you so much. Cancel Burns till 4/20. So Lux and Dave were both bugging me with this video to be a little more hardcore, because they were worried that people were going to be like, just make sure people don't think it's an apology for AI. And in my naivety, I was like, of course they're not going to think that. They like, no, people know me. I've been on these online streets for quite some time. And I even added a few sections to the video where I just like list all of the evil things about AI. I talk about the ecological impact of data centers. I talk about the devastating effects it's having on education. I refer to the people that run these companies as soulless, evil ghouls. I speak to the way in which these technologies are exploiting the labor and time of working class people. I tried to make that very, very clear. And that's why in the video, here's what I wanted to get across. I wanted to get across that I have historically been morally rigorous with my view towards AI. I say some stuff like that early in the video. I then wanted to communicate that in having a conversation with someone who I respect, Dr. Fatima, after seeing her give a really interesting presentation, made me reflect on some of my presuppositions. Now, one of the motivating reasons for doing that was to exemplify my own rethinking of something like AI. Another reason I did that is kind of the pedagogical idea that I exemplify, that we should all do that about lots of stuff. We should be open to considering ideas that differ from our own. We should be open to considering viewpoints communicated in good faith by people who we believe are operating in good faith. We should be able to consider those viewpoints, not that it means we change our minds, but so that we're able to think through them, so that we're able to think through them. I then wanted to communicate, and this was something I thought was important via Fatima's story, that because AI is such a problem, and again, I made a video that talks about AI being used by ICE and the way in which some AI systems have encouraged people to take their own lives. Like I made that video last month. Shit is horrifying and terrible. And the real thing I was kind of getting at there is the reason young people are getting addicted to AI, or that they're turning to AI to deal with mental health issues that can't be talked about otherwise. The reason that some people are like falling in love with computer and ruining their personal lives, it's because like they're fucking lonely and sad, and we live in an alienating, isolating world that's really hard for a lot of people. And if you hear me say that and you're kind of like, I don't know, you're being soft, I mean this very genuinely. We're just not for each other. We're not. My vibe is not internet angry guy that sits in a little room by myself and makes all-encompassing judgments on people who I've never met without any empathy or care or subtlety. That's not the person I want to be. I can be that person sometime, but I'm trying to not be that person. So when I think about that, my thought is like, we can't simply end our analysis at this stuff does this thing, so it's bad, and these people do that thing, so they're dumb. We need to ask, what are the conditions that lead people to using things in that way? And what are the conditions that lead companies to be able to take advantage of us in those ways? And the reason I focused on the example that Dr. Fatima gave of using an LLM to help in a legal situation, the point of that wasn't to be like, hey, here's one example of a time it was good, so now it's all good, guys. One example, hey, Darth Vader helped the guy up from the ground, so now the Empire is good. No, I wasn't trying to do that. I was trying to show how someone could use a thing like that in a moment of desperation and anxiety. And I was hoping that many of us as humans, and I'm sure many of us who are working class people that pay rent and don't own our homes, that many of us would have a level of baseline empathy with the thought of getting evicted, especially getting evicted in a really expensive city, in a really expensive state. And we live in a system, at least here in America, where, tenants don't have a lot of rights. And, there was comments that were like, she could have just Googled tenants union. Cool. Can our impulse be to have empathy for the renter and not like judge and shame them? Can our impulse be to kind of fall on the side of the renter and not the landlord class? Can we maybe do that? So that's why I wanted to talk about that specific example to humanize things. As I go on in the video, I also made a point that saying that AI or that automated technology in general is inherently immoral, I think misses the point, because to rule out a technology in total because of the people developing and running that technology, I think is dangerous. And I say that as someone who identifies as a Marxist. Now, I'm a Marxist who really likes and is tempted by degrowth and likes the work of Kohei Saito a lot. But I also see the value in some of the work that has taken place that tries to reclaim automation as a leftist emancipatory project. Now, I don't know if I'm all the way there. And this is one you're going to have to trust me on if you're not from the academic world, but I wouldn't, why would I lie to you? I might be wrong, but I'm not going to lie. There are a lot of smart people that work in the fields of like philosophy, political theory, economics, who are thinking about the way in which automation and technologies like that can be used for the good. I'm going to talk about this later in the show today. We're going to look at some Marx stuff. We're going to get into it. But I do think, and this is maybe where some of you are going to disagree with me, and I hope if we disagree on this, and I'm going to hit this in more detail later in the show. I think that these technologies, whether we like it or not, are a part of our reality now. I think that these technologies, left unregulated and unencumbered, will be used to exploit working people down to our very bone marrow. We'll extract as much labor value from us as possible, and we'll do so in a way that can potentially devastate the economy in the world we live in while taking down a bunch of useful systems with it, all along alienating us from ourselves, from others, and from our humanity, which I think is horrible. At the same time, I can see potentially how certain automated technologies, like LLMs in some ways, could be used to alleviate human labor, and especially alleviate some of the labor associated with things like bullshit jobs, while creating more human time for people. If you have read Marx before, and there's a big section in the German ideology about this and some other places, the goal for Marx and many from that tradition is to get to a point where we are using technology not to increase the rate of profits for the owners of that technology, but we are using technology to take on labor capacity, to create more humanity, to create more space for us to live. That's why when I see all the tech guys who are the ones selling us on this bullshit, doing the 996 thing, I'm like, is it 996, 966, 6966? I don't know. And again, you don't have, I think we should totally be able to disagree on this in a way that isn't nuts, but it's hard to not see how elements of automated technology could be used in emancipatory ways. Do I think it's happening now? No. Do I think any of the people that own places like OpenAI are ever going to get us there? No. Do I think any of the people that have that power are there? No. I just got 6-7 in the chat. God damn it. But I think to act like it's not the case is naive. And if your whole vision of this is like, we're just going to unplug it or something, it's not going to happen. And to go a little further down this rabbit hole, America's not really like the top dog anymore. There's another country you might have heard of with great cuisine called China, who I'd say, in what I know, and I'm not an expert on this, but China's already doing things that respond to a lot of the problems people in America have with AI. But my main point, the underlying idea I wanted to get at in this video was that we should be able to ruthlessly critique these technologies and the people that benefit off them while being slightly more human to people that might be suffering or exploited by those technologies. Because what do these technologies want to do? They want to dehumanize us. They want us to think like them. What is the risk of using ChatGPT in our day-to-day life to deal with normal human stuff? It literally is going to rewire our brain to operate via their algorithm, which we don't want. We want to be human. But when we take that like response of the data input is something I don't agree with, so I'm mad now. Dog, you're being an algorithm. You're not taking a second and thinking. And that is not me saying that you shouldn't critique me and other people that make stuff when you have problems with it, but do it from a spirit of humanity and not from a spirit of algorithmic brutality and performativity, if that makes sense. Because if there's one thing I'm interested in both in my online and offline work, it's going to sound reductive. It might even sound a little bit hippie-ish. I'm very interested in just being more human again, collectively, individually, because so many things we do now, and I've talked about this in a recent video. I think I talked about it in the video from 2 weeks ago. You know, we used to tweet like we talked. Now we talk like we tweet, something like that. You know, we've let a digitized algorithmic mode of thinking infect our brain goo, because I don't know if you know this, the brain is made of goo. Which is why I want all of us to get back there. And you can watch a video like that and say, this guy is defending right-wing AI capitalists, whatever. Cool, dog. But that's not me. I know that's not me. I'm a 40-year-old man. I've had time to think through stuff. So now we got to focus on Meslove. Mez, who is, not to put you on blast, who was at the event where Fatima gave this talk. And I'm actually curious, Mez, if you do have thoughts on it, I'd love to hear it, because this is truly like this video and the ensuing chaos. It was inspired by stuff we talked about. Edrim Hassan Piker took me to coffee to ask if you were cool. Glad to report I said you're cool. Thank you so much, Meslove. That's very nice to hear. I have like social anxiety that one time in Los Angeles, I'll see Hassan Piker somewhere and I'll think to myself, like, I guess maybe I should say hi. I know he's watched my videos before. I think we're on the same team, but yeah. And I'll say one more thing before I look at some comments from the video. The homie Sean says, everyone his comment probably never got past 5 minutes. So here's the thing I know for a fact. The video is 27 minutes long. A lot of the really brutal comments came before the video was up for 27 minutes, many of them after a few minutes. And some of this I'll take the L for, that I didn't make a video that people wanted to watch. The watch time was really low. So a lot of people just didn't watch the video. But let's look at some of the comments. Let's see, what should we sort by? I guess we'll do top comments to see what the kids are reacting to. We won't look at my comments because that's silly. Fangle says, with all due respect, the solution shouldn't be automation, rather human cooperation, coordination, using tech just as a tool. No, but that's kind of like, I agree with you here. I totally agree with you here. Technology is useful when it's a tool to facilitate and expand our humanity. Technology is not good when it exploits our humanity for the sake of technological ends. So I don't know. That's where I'm at with that. I hope we can agree to some extent. Okay, let's look at some comments. Let me zoom in a little more. See, I'm not even good at computer. You guys think I want to like give up my humanity for AI? I can't even do computer good. Let's see. This person said, just because nuke helped end World War II doesn't mean the nuke was a good invention. Freedom fighters using guns doesn't make the rifle a good invention. AI supplants and supersedes the human mind, and that is shameful. This is one of those comments where I'm like, I hope nothing in this video indicated to anyone that I was saying that a bomb ended the war, so bombs are good now, or freedom fighters use guns, so homies, let's strap up. The whole point of using the example of ChatGPT helping Fatima to not get evicted was to give us a human entry point. Because here's how it affected me. And if it affected you differently, that's totally fine. The way it affected me was it made me feel less critical and more empathetic as I related to the experience of what it would be like to be a working person who recently lost a job, a working person who lost a job and lived in an expensive city, and is worried about losing their home. I don't know. And when people do the thing of like, well, still, I don't care. It's like, what are you like as a person? Are you like cool? Are you a cool person to hang out with? If that's how you operate. Alt-Rock says, I don't think for-profit Gen AI LMs are a solution to a broken society or lack of community for anyone. I agree. Even if they worked as advertised, which absolutely not, the total cost of their use are too great on a planet that's literally burning. Truly no disagreement there. Truly no disagreement there. Ethically using ChatGPT shouldn't be left up to the users. Infrastructure regulated. I agree with that. NR Gray, who has a really cool user thing because it's from Where the Wild Things Are, shout out to them, said she got lucky. It was right. And anecdotal positive outcomes that center around a traumatic moment aren't where anyone should be weighting their stance on a thing that has gotten career attorneys' cases dropped for citing non-existent law and cases. I mean, I'll say one thing. If a lawyer uses it and fucks up, that's totally on the lawyer. That's totally on the lawyer. Totally on the lawyer. But in this instance, we're talking about, again, the use of the anecdote for me, and I'm totally fine if it didn't operate as I thought it would. The rhetorical strategy there for me was to get you to soften up for a sec, pause, but to get you to be a little more human before getting into a topic that is very reactive. That was the goal. The goal wasn't to say this makes it good. And later in the video, when I say something to the effect of, you know, if a astrophysics PhD can get caught up in this, we all can. The point wasn't to say, oh, a smart person who I like used ChatGPT, so ChatGPT is good. No, the point was to say maybe we should have a little more empathy and understanding for people who might get caught up in these technologies and pull them back from it towards humanity, not by dehumanize them and being like, you dumb bitch, bullying you. And there's so many comments here. I'll try to find some that are like, no, it is good to bully people. I don't know if you've ever been bullied. I'll be honest. I assume if you have time to watch a bunch of YouTube videos and leave involved comments, you've been bullied at some point. Was it cool? Was that like helpful? You could bully Nazis. Find it. There's Nazis everywhere now, guys. There's Nazis everywhere. Speaking of, we might talk about Nick Fuentes later, but there's Nazis everywhere. Go bully a Nazi. Let's not bully a Nazi. Okay, so this comment, which is very popular from Alina, said, I can't help but think this is all because of that event you did with her in the Bay Area, which is true. If I remember correctly, Dr. Fatima is a Bay Area resident, which is true. As one myself, I can say with confidence that many highly educated people in STEM who live in this hellhole are brainwashed by the promise of LLMs in one way or another. Just a glorified autocomplete machine trained on all human intellectual property. It confidently lies, obfuscates, and hallucinates all the time. If you're an expert in any field, you can see the glaring errors in its output. It does one thing well, confidently bluffing on everything, just like its Silicon Valley tech bro creators. This is one of those things where, like, I think slightly unfair shots at a person I doubt Alina knows, and I wish that she would get the vibe that she's a good person because she is. But yeah, I don't like these takes, though, that reduce it to all crap. Like it's all just dumb crap. Like it does some stuff. It's not cool. Like I don't love it. I don't think it's cool. Let's see. This person, I guess I won't read it because they kind of okay, here we go. This person agrees with me, then disagrees with me. This is Cucumber Josie. At the end of the day, I think I agree with you. Shame isn't a very good motivator, and being kinder and more human to the people around you is always a wise choice. 90% of what I was trying to argue here. I'll definitely be thinking about the way I talk to people about their AI use with some more compassion. Great. However, this is fair. I struggle with the comparison of AI use to Uber drivers and carbon emissions. And this is a point that Fatima made, the idea that people are incredibly ethically repulsed in many ways, as they should be, by the ecological devastation or ecological cost of LLMs and data centers, while the question being like, we also know that carbon emissions have destroyed our planet. Should we like shame Uber drivers or taxi drivers or something for their workplace environmental degradation? She says there's a fundamental difference. Oh, sorry, the person who left this comment said there's a fundamental difference between these issues. Car-centric infrastructure has been fermenting for about a century, while AI is very young. I would like to think we have a little more agency in this moment to push back against new and harmful behaviors as opposed to deeply ingrained ones. I don't want to give up the game in the first quarter here. I think that's a great point because, again, it's not the same thing. Like, we do live in a society where, for many of us, depending on where you live, you don't really have a choice if you use a car or some carbon-based machine to get someplace because you have to go there to do your job. I think we're in a place right now where most people don't have to use AI or LLMs, even though there's so much stuff we use that's powered by those things, even if you don't realize it or not. Sorry. So yes, I do think there's still more room to put political pressure on those things. I know most people didn't watch the end of the video. Maybe we'll watch it in a second at the end of this conversation. But at the end of the video, one of the things that Fatima said was we need to be putting massive political pressure on things like data centers. Like, let's go hard at that. Let's go hard at that. So I'm sad that I'm not keeping up with the full chat because I know you guys are saying brilliant stuff. Also, too, thank you for being here. I've been talking for a while now. This is Burns Notice, the weekly stream of me, Michael Burns. You could call me Dr. Michael, but I would feel uncomfortable with that. But technically, am I? Yes. I stream every week. I put out videos. I try to make them good. I try hard to make them good. Sometimes they're not as good, and sometimes they're really good. And sometimes it's my fault, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's kind of my fault. But thank you for being here. Thanks to everyone in this community. I'm just trying to like have a conversation, you know? Um, so Austin said, justifying LLMs whose entire usefulness is sourced from stealing. I don't think the whole, and someone, this is a genuine question because I know some of you are better at science than me. Is their entire usefulness sourced from stealing? Let me know. To combat unfair systems of our society still isn't like cool, my dude. I appreciate that tone. I mean that genuinely. Shaming desperate people and looking down on people morally works very little in this instance, but that shouldn't be used for LLM acceptance. Am I allowed to be disappointed in someone's reliability on chatbots? Absolutely. For sure. Like, again, be disappointed or a little bummed or upset about the whole thing. Just don't be a psycho about it. Should society function by keeping the bottom 99% of America stretched so thin they need to ask a chatbot to save them from going homeless? Definitely not. The AI needs to benefit all people, not just the rich, 100%, and not by giving meager, momentarily get out of jail free cards to struggling Americans. The water crisis of our time is already here, and giving data centers a pass to pillage because they're already pillagers isn't acceptable. Agreed. Like, this is why I'm kind of confused, because I think that people are reacting to a lot of things that I did not say. This person said, F that, man. LLMs suck. They're making people lazy and dumber. And I'm not even getting manipulation and corrupt information. I'm also not getting into LLMs trained on stolen data. This person says, pretending AI is a substitute for not having a lawyer isn't my idea of a valid use case, but I guess society is so broken we can make their nonsense claims valid. Woo. This person said good video, but they wanted a little more depth. Not to be this guy, but full interview on Patreon. Sign up today using code Cancel Burns for 50% off. Let's see. This person said, yeah, it might upend our entire economy and ruin countless people's lives, but it'll scrub r/law for you. Let's see. This person said, this feels unfair to me. Curious if Dr. Fatima thinks people here in Memphis should be poisoned by the energy output of Musk's AI so that she can use it to not have to move. Couple things here. Why do we have to assume this about people? Like, Dr. Fatima is a person who I've talked to on the show a couple of times. She's makes videos, does stuff. There's enough out there for us to know she's not a fucking psychopath. So, of course, this is someone who does not think that people in Memphis should be poisoned. And the point, again, wasn't, I did this so I didn't have to move. Being evicted is different than having to move. And I don't know if any of y'all have ever lived in an expensive city and been out of work. It's not like you can just be like, oh, let me go to the magic money bucket. I'll put my hand in the magic money bucket. I'll get money out of my magic money bucket. And I'll go get my magical new house because of the magical money bucket. How much of our excellent water should they have to cool their computers? I can find a few good uses for a flamethrower. Doesn't mean I think I should own one. There you go. Let's see. This person said, no hating, no judging. What's happening at Fatima is just sad. This one failed on me. She's basically talking about a slippery slope. I don't think that's what was being talked about. Mr. Cynic, who I feel like Mr. Cynic, friend of the program, said, I don't know, man, anecdotal evidence really isn't a compelling argument for supporting technology so deeply and easily corruptive, destructive, and pushed forward by the worst people in our society. Agreed with my man, Mr. Cynic, right there. This person who I responded to, I bet I said something really nice. If I manage to pay off my loans with a lucky gambling win, shall we also change our minds about gambling? Again, that is, let me think. Because I'm trying to do the empathy thing here. I don't think in the video there's any equation made between good thing happened for one person, so whole system changed. Like I said before, the whole idea was let's use a personal example from a person, not to do logical fallacy, but to just be a person and be like, hey, that's a person like how I'm a person. And this person did a thing maybe I couldn't see myself doing, but they were in a tough situation. So, like, I really don't think people are, maybe I'm wrong because I think people should just be normal. This person hates me because they've since left a bunch of like comments about how I'm like a right-wing figure. Hashfire. Well, there's a person with this username on social media who seems to not want to go out on a date with me. Which is sad because the whole point of this is to get people to go on dates with me. Never heard a more privileged analogy than equating. I chose to ask an LLM for legal advice instead of actually searching the internet. To cab drivers got scammed out of their unions and livelihood by Uber. Again, that's not what she said. King Lotier said, we need to really stop playing this find the middle ground on things that are objectively negative to near everyone and everything in society. Like, my point again isn't to do the middle ground thing. I am not Jubilee. This channel has not been acquired by Jubilee. I think of it this way. We can't treat everything like it's some zero-sum game. Eddie, my wife, does not know that the whole point of this is for me to go on dates. Please don't tell her. Even though I think our wives would get along and be great friends. But the point here isn't to say that every single thing is either this, that, or the middle ground. Like, can't we sometimes just talk about stuff? Had Beard will travel, said Burns. Could it be that the original title of the video may have painted people's expectations? For sure. I was wrong. Just feels like apologia. I know the video wasn't. Yeah, and that's where I'm willing to 100% Had Beard will travel. If I could go back now, I would have gone with a much mellower title. The problem for me at a strategic level is I'm not popular enough on this website where I can just title things normal stuff and people will click them. And I don't even think it's a clickable thing because even for those of you who subscribe, we all know that YouTube often doesn't even show us our subscribers. So it's a way to, I need to figure out what that balance is of like getting out in the algorithm in a way that doesn't feel shitty. Meslub said, I think what Fatima got across better in person and in the video was that desperate people try anything. And if it worked the first time, you can get hooked. For sure. And like I said before, the hard thing with a lot of this is me not just wanting to like bogart Fatima's whole thing, but use it as a way to think about stuff. But I think that's true as well. Someone said philosophy gets you laid. That's true. I've had sex upward of 3 times because of philosophy. Good morning, Eva, Australia. Good day. And Eva's in Thursday. I'm still in Wednesday. I hope things are going better in Thursday. Let's see. Okay. Let's just watch the end of the video because I think that it didn't really get watched a lot. And I think it's better than maybe people realize. Not better, but you know what I mean. I just think there's maybe more going on there. So I just want to look at the end and see what Fatima says right here. And because I know that topics like these can often leave us with the feeling of like, well, what the fuck do we do now? I asked Dr. Fatima for advice on how we can engage with technologies like this in a world where, like it or not, they're not going anywhere.
I suppose one thing that comes to mind is go through the trouble of learning its limits. Because I think if just a layperson opens up ChatGPT and starts asking it stuff, it's easy to be like, wow, this can do everything, and you don't actually see what it's doing wrong. If you are moved...
I want to pause that only to say that I think Fatima's point there is like, it's even if our attitude is going to be that we don't fuck with AI, we don't fuck with it heavy, we should still understand how it works. It's like, if we're going to critique capitalism, it's not a good critique of capitalism if you're just like, oh, capitalism's bad. Well, why? Everyone knows it's bad. Like, you have to understand how it works to understand its limits, to understand how to work against it, things of that nature.
Moved by your criticisms of the technology, I think directing those in a more productive way than shaming individual people is perhaps like also a healthy way of engaging. Like, for example, AI requires immense data storage and processing power, and that requires physical space, right? These things feel like they just exist in the cloud, but those correspond to actual physical data centers.
I just want to note in the video, what she's saying, what we're showing is criticizing this thing. No one is celebrating water damage and degradation.
Have to be built somewhere and then have an impact on the town that's around them, right? They pollute, they take up all the water, they take up all the energy, they do
that with
all these things. And so there are people who are organizing against the actual physical manifestation.
So right here, there's a sort of endorsement of organizing in opposition of data centers. I know this is at minute 23:57 of a 27:48 video. I just have to point out that it's there.
Of the harm AI does in our world. That is a more like collective, directed at the actual source of power outlet for the frustrations of the harms of AI than tweeting about how dumb people who use it to write emails are.
And quick special thanks again to Dr. Fatima for talking to me for this one and just, talking to me in general, because the whole YouTube thing can be pretty isolating, and it's really great to make real friendships with the people who make stuff on here. She's one of the best. So subscribe to her channel if you don't already. Check out her Patreon. And if she's speaking in your city, I swear to God, you better not miss it. If I find out that Dr. Fatima is doing a speaking, I really mean this, event in your city, and you don't go, I'm gonna be mad. But I can't afford it. If Dr. Fatima is doing a speaking event in your city and you can't afford it, I totally get that. Times is hard. Hit me up. I got you. Now, I don't have a grand conclusion for this one, but I want to emphasize that when we get caught up in the reactivity of internet discourse, we run the risk of closing ourselves off to thinking more carefully about issues like this. That's all I mean. Thinking carefully. And if we forget to slow down and think in more structural terms, we end up denying ourselves the type of understanding that will help us actively fight against these systems. Fight against these systems. I just want to note, now I am being a little bit petty and defensive. I said I want us to fight against them. I said we just got to maybe understand them first. And think about how technology can eventually be used, maybe for the... I feel like I'm a two-man version of Migos right now, doing like ad libs for myself. The purpose of improving the lives of working people. We've actually talked about this a little bit in my Patreon reading group via the work of Frederick Jameson, who in his essay on postmodernism points out that we're not doing anything interesting. We're just like, oh, postmodernism is the cultural logic of late capitalism, and capitalism is bad. So it's all bad, you know? You got to do more than that. If you want to support this channel and read books with me and other humans, there's a link below. But the point of this video wasn't to say, get to the point, bitch. I used to hate AI, but then it helped my friend, and now I love it. The point, I feel like that's what everyone thought I said in the video. No, far from it. You know, Sam Altman and anyone who rides with him can S my D from the B. Does anyone not know what that means? For all I care. But instead, I simply wanted to point out the importance of keeping our minds open to complexity, especially when we're faced with the constant temptation to do fun stuff like spout off instant reactions and takes that perfectly embody the reactive engine of social media. You know, it's important to do that. It's important that we think like humans in a room talking to other humans, and not like algorithms that are designed to produce 140 character. I think this is important. Takes to sell advertising that benefits guys who are like Lex Luthor, except they have more hair and somehow less riz. Thanks again to... Okay, I just say thank you at the end because I'm a polite guy and I say thank you. There you go. There you go. The ghost computer, who's just out here to criticize everything I do. Open with the point of this video is not say I love AI. Might have been better as an outro. That is all. That's true. Evan probably should have put it at the beginning. Hold on. Let's watch just for a second. I'm going to look at the beginning. I'm just going to imagine what would I think. Okay, so I've never seen this channel before, which is why would I not have seen the channel before? It seems great. But first time watching it, what do I think? I
don't know how to legally defend myself.
First of all, I just think this guy looks cool as hell.
And that's actually something ChatGPT is extremely well suited for, I think. Like, I've had conversations with people who are like, there's absolutely no circumstance in which you should do it. And it's like, should I have just gotten kicked out of my house?
I mean, the goal there was to start with something provocative to make you interested. I'll totally fess to that. Good editing by producer Henry, by the way, who I think is going to join us later. I recently talked to Dr. Fatima about the ethics of ChatGPT after seeing her give a presentation on the topic that challenged some of my own feelings about the way in which people use LLMs. Because honestly, my attitude towards the recent rise in AI usage is that people that use platforms like ChatGPT for research and creative work are dumb and bad and should be made fun of online with reckless abandon. I mean, I did say that. And the people who operate these companies are some of the most evil nerds on the planet.
I call Sam Altman an evil nerd at 55 seconds.
They're like the bad guys from sci-fi films, except without any of that raw sexual energy. Which is why seeing someone who is much smarter than me
is true.
Talk about how ChatGPT kept her from being evicted and how shaming people who use these platforms has zero positive effect put me in an uncomfortable position of having to entertain the idea that maybe, just this once, I was wrong. Maybe a little bit wrong.
Having that as a
I said maybe a little bit wrong.
resource was the difference between me getting evicted and getting to stay in my home. I couldn't afford a lawyer. Like,
And to be clear, I continue to think that
Okay, I'm going to stop after this.
fundamentally,
I continue to think that
these platforms and the people who profit off of them are very bad. And I have no interest in apologizing for them. But I also think it's good that someone
Oh, now this is where it gets off.
used one of these bad platforms to fight back against a landlord. So today I want to talk.
Okay, so I guess I like can kind of see. Oh, I didn't show it on the screen at all. Did we hear it at least, or is that just me? Was that just me doing this? Is a classic me thing. It just looked like that. It just looked like that. You guys didn't miss anything, I promise. Well, you know. Oh, shout out to Keith Giles. Admitting you're wrong makes it seem like it's okay for me to admit that I could be wrong. That's the goal. Like, honestly, guys, like that is the goal to you know, to set that example. Because you know, I don't want to be. There's a lot of a-holes on this website and other websites who act in a way that I think encourages their audiences to be like, we're right and we're the right guys and we're only right. And if you're not like us, well, fuck you. No way, dude. That's stupid. That's stupid, man. I don't like that. We can all be wrong, and it's totally cool that we can be wrong.